Thank you, Misha. Oh my God, we're so alike. It's weird. I mean, even though you're from Romania and I'm from Tacoma, when you were talking about how you were feeling, I was like, oh my God, that's how I am. And I bring a little thing for me. It makes me feel better so that if I go blank, I can go, okay, where am I? Sometimes I hear people say they just are going to let God come through them and they're not going to have anything like this. And God did not gift me that way. God made me a good listener. So that's who I am. My name's Karla. My sobriety date is June 10th, 2002. And my home group is Wednesday night, Montlake Terrace Wednesday night group, according to the bank. And I have a sponsor and I sponsor women. And did this talk like at the Phoenix Club a week and a half ago, and there's a few of you from the Phoenix Club here, and I'm like, gosh, I'm so nervous that you're going to hear the same talk. And I got to change up my talk, but I guess, you're going to get what you get. So there's this part in the big book that talks about fear, and it talks about how fear is a corroding thread that our life is shot through with it, something along those lines. And that is my story too. When I got here, I was stressed out. I was a stressed out kid, a just very fearful kid. And I come from an upper middle class family. My dad was a very successful man. He was a workaholic. He quit drinking 2 years before I was born, and but he never went to AA, and he probably would have benefited from it. He was kind of stressed out, and there was not a lot of fighting in my house, but there was a lot of silence, and there was a lot of underlying, where you learn how to read the room when you go into it. Is he in a bad mood? Is he in a good mood? So there was a lot of that going on at my house, and I am adopted, as are my two older brothers. They're 10 and 11 years older than me. And when my dad got sober 2 years later, there was this baby at the hospital that nobody wanted. And my dad knew the attorney handling the adoption. And he said to my mom, there's a baby girl at the hospital. And she said, do you know how old you are? Because he was like almost 45 and she was almost 42. When they adopted me. Today is Veterans Day, and I posted on social media. My dad was a veteran of World War II, and my biological father was actually a veteran of Vietnam. So I mean, that's kind of goes. He was old enough. They were old enough to be my grandparents, and that made me feel different. Like my parents are so much older. There was a kid in my class who had a mother who birthed him when she was 14, and I thought that was so cool. Like, why couldn't I have a mom who was 14 when I was born? So I just felt different, like a lot of us talk about, and I was very sensitive. I was a super sensitive kid, and it was the 70s, and the parents were not really involved, and there was a lot of, we would go outside and there was all these kids running around the neighborhood until it got dark, and a lot of people have happy memories of that, and I do, but there was a lot of sort of bullying going on, and it was just kind of wild. Those kids there was bullying, and there was sexual activity going on with little kids, and there was abusive behavior, and I just really kind of like to hang out by myself. Thank you very much. I'll stay home and watch TV. And that's what I kind of learned how to do, to go into myself and to just escape. I learned to make believe. I started playing when I was a little girl, and I didn't stop until I was like in my 40s. I was living in this fantasy of, especially when you're adopted, you can do that because who knows who your parents are, my dad might be Robert Redford. You never know. So this is how I just kind of managed. And I was a pretty smart kid. So my parents, when I hit junior high, they sent me to private school because my brothers had gone to the local junior high, and they felt like that's when they started down the wrong path, and they didn't want that to happen with me. So I was sent to this private school. It was awful. It wasn't awful, but at first it was going because I was a tomboy. I just so admired boys. They just had a better deal in life. And when I was in sixth and seventh grade, my body started to change. And I was an early bloomer and I bloomed fully. And it was just really awful. And I was like, I remember saying to my mom, are they going to make me take showers in front of other people? I was just so afraid of junior high. And it was hard. It was hard to be this little girl in this sort of woman's body. And um, I mean, it was just another thing that added to my level of unease. And I just, I needed a drink. And then when I was around 15, I got high for the first time, and wow, that was such a release. It was so good, so good. I didn't even know how I wasn't feeling good until I did that, and I felt so good. I just like my whole point in life went from trying to be a good girl and get my father's approval and do the right thing and be good at sports and stuff like that to when can I do that again, because that felt really good and I want to keep doing that as much as I can. And that's what I did. I had a friend in my class whose older sister dated the drug dealer, and I really ingratiated myself to her. And that so shocks me because I don't really think of me as that kind of person. But I really tried hard to be her friend, and I became her friend. And she was quite a bit older, like 7 years. And when you're, 15, that's a lot. So I became her friend, and I became this sort of reluctant drug dealer for other people because people knew I could get the drugs, so they would come to me. And so I mean, I went from this good girl to this sort of wild girl. And in this little private school I was going to, I was pretty crazy. Not compared to some of you guys, but where I was at, I was pretty crazy. And I also would drink and do drugs alone when I could, because even though it helped me to be with people to drink, that helped a lot. I preferred to do it so if I could get it and do it myself, I would, because I still just preferred my fantasy to the reality of what was going on. And so I continued doing that through high school. I graduated 40th out of 42, which is pretty, I mean, I was a smart kid, a little kid, and now here I am 40th out of 42. That was pretty, woo. But I did get into college. I worked my ass off that second half of junior year or whatever, and I got into college, and it was going to be different. This was my first time where I was going to do things right. I wasn't going to party so much. I could party. That's not really a party for me, but I'm just going to do it differently, and it's going to be good. And for the first semester, it was because the people I knew were normies. They would get that. I remember one night before a football game, they got a pint for 4 people. And I know, I didn't even drink because why? Why? But then by the second semester, I met the stoners and the drinkers, and we would take philosophy, and people were Ernest Hemingway, where people's, idolized these people, and being an alcoholic was romantic, and so I partied, and I did okay because you don't have to go to class every day. And as long as I didn't have an evening class or an early morning class, it was good. And I did all right. I made it through college. I did start to get really scared with my drug abuse, and I told my mom, and she kind of wanted to push that it was too much for her to deal with. And so she just kind of wanted me to get my shit together, and I wanted to get my shit together, and we weren't going to let my dad know. And so I kind of got my shit together. That's my story. It gets bad, and then I somehow reel it back. I find a way to reel it back, and that's how it worked. And after I graduated from college, my brother was killed in a car accident. Someone ran a red light and hit his car, and he was killed. And I remember that as a time I was drinking every day, hard liquor every day, and I just don't think I mean, I was very sad. I mean, that was my first experience of powerlessness, where you can't do anything, you can't do anything and make him come back. And it felt so unfair. And I just drank all the way through it. And his death, um, I got money when he died. There was insurance money that my brother and I got. And that was kind of my experience. Was I never had to really worry about money. I always seemed to get it. It comes my way from my people dying and my family. And so I never had to worry about that, which I don't think, I mean, that's neither here nor there, but I was never going to be homeless or anything like that. So I could use without fear of losing everything. And I don't know if that's good or bad or whatever, but that was my story. And um, I did go to grad school. I dropped out because I couldn't drink like I drank. I go to grad school. I got kicked out of Rod Stewart because I was drunk. Um, and I proposed to my boyfriend because it was getting stale. It was like, okay, we either got to break up or get married. Something has to happen. This is boring. And so got drunk and proposed that, and I really wanted to have kids because that was something that I had always wanted, because I wanted someone that would love me and I could love unconditionally. And so I thought, I'll marry this guy. I can have kids with him, and he's an okay guy, you know? So, so we did that. And he was a great enabler for me. I, uh, I drank, I reeled myself back in. We did geographicals from California to here. We went to England once so I could get away from my responsibilities, and I was going to be sober over there. And that we were there for 3 days, and he was like, "Do you want a beer?" And I was like, "Yes." And I was off again. And it's just my life. My drinking career was a lot of stopping and starting. Oh, this is a problem. While we were in England, I had my very first blackout, where you black, not where you go to bed and you can't remember, but where you black out and you lose time and you come back. And that scared me scared me straight for like 30 days. And my fantasy life was about being sober at that time, and that could only go so far, when you're an alcoholic. And so that's what I did. I drank. I stopped doing drugs once I turned 21 because alcohol was so much more predictable. And I continued on doing that. I had three more kids, so I had four kids total. I used pregnancy as a way to get sober, because I got sober every time I was pregnant, which was, thank you, that I was able to do that. And what happened? What happened? Well, when I was about 32, I had a boyfriend, and he said to me, "I think you have an alcohol problem." And I remember saying to him, "I think you need to go to treatment." And I remember saying, I was afraid to try to stop because what if I can't stop? That was kind of like, I mean, I had like this moment of clarity that maybe I had a problem, but I really didn't think I was an alcoholic. I thought I was a loser. I thought I was something else. Because my dad quit drinking. He went to treatment and he quit drinking and he never drank again. And he was a successful lawyer. And I would quit drinking, but then I would drink again because I was never successful at anything, I thought. So I thought there was something wrong with me. And so I tried to get sober. I went to treatment, and I was scared. I was scared to go to AA. That was very scary. And so I went to AA. I went to one meeting a week, and I wouldn't speak because I just was sure everyone else wanted to talk and I didn't have to talk. I listened. And then I eventually ended up drinking again, and I thought, okay, I got to talk. So I started going to like a couple meetings a week, and I talked, and I got a service position. I had a sponsor, but I drank again. That was so weird. And then I was like, okay, I got to go to a meeting every day, and I got to talk, and I got to have a service position, and I have to have a sponsor and do the steps. And then I drank again. And it was like, that last drink, I was 37. So, and I had taken one Valium and drank one beer. It was a relapse because I became a binge drinker. And it was my husband's day off, and he was mad. He didn't want me to do what I was doing. And I was like, don't you understand? Don't you understand that I have to do? I didn't say that to him. In my mind, I was thinking, I wanted him to understand that I got it. I got it. I got it. I saw with total clarity that every time it was going to be different. Every single fucking time it was going to be different. I'm going to not do that this time. I'm going to try harder this time. I'm going to try really hard this time, and it's going to be different. And then it just never was different. And I really saw that it was never, ever going to be different. And that was like really a scary place to be because I couldn't live without it. I didn't know how to function in life. I didn't want to give it up because it was my friend. And I didn't know how to do that. So I really felt like I was in trouble. I didn't know what to, I don't want to say that word again, but I was, in trouble. And I was at the jumping off place that they talk about. I really got that I was in this endless procession. I may not have been at the very end, but I was in it, and I was only going this way so I got that. And um, so then, I ended up at Harborview because they thought I might be suicidal, and it was very shameful. I was sitting in Harborview emergency room, and it was all open, and I had all my chest hanging out with these things on it. And even someone came and apologized to me, but they didn't change it anyway. That was God. But I was still a little buzzed, so I didn't really care. But anyway, um, I got home and I started planning. I know what I got to do. I know what I got to do. I got to go to AA every day. Got to get a sponsor. Got to do the steps. Got to be of service. And I can't put anything in front of it. And I have to let the people know me. And I had this plan. And I was right. It was a good plan, but it was my plan again. That was the problem. I had all these plans. And my husband just said, I want you to go to treatment. I want you to go away. And I didn't want to go away. Because I thought I got myself into this, I have to get myself out. And I was tired because I had a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I was tired. And I thought, then I just sighed kind of, and I said, okay, maybe I do deserve to go to treatment. Maybe I can go to treatment. And it was another surrender for me. And then when I was in treatment, I started to think I knew how to do this again, how to stay sober. And they give you a lot of handouts and treatment, a lot of education. And I was like, this isn't going to keep me sober. AA is going to keep me sober. And this little voice inside my head said, Karla, you don't know how to stay sober. Karla, you don't know what recovery looks like. And so, that was a huge, and I had a friend who was smart like me, and she was like, yeah, this isn't going to keep us sober. And she threw them all away, but I kept them because I decided that I didn't know. And that was another, that giving it up. So I asked someone scary to sponsor me, somebody who would, call me on my bullshit. And my BS is kind of nice. It's kind of like not calling, I'm sorry, and she would be like, I'm just not sure if this is going to work for you. And I would get scared when she would say stuff like that, and I would do what she wanted me to do. And she had kids, and I hung out with women who had kids, and we went to babysitting meetings. I went to a meeting every day, and we went out of town. We got just dragged out of town, and we have so many funny stories because my sponsor would grab a newcomer like a day sober and take her out of town with us in our hotel room and everything. And there was some fun times. It was really interesting, great stories. But I had this family in AA, and that's when I started coming to your house, and my family got bigger, and it was okay. And my sponsor said something about what we were going to be doing in a year. And I thought, oh my God, she thinks I'm going to be sober in a year. I mean, I didn't have that confidence, but, and I don't know if she did either, but she said she did. And so she got me involved in service. And when I had 2 years, she said, "Oh, you can be a GSR." And my home group didn't have a GSR, so I started being a GSR when I had 2 years sober. And service for an alcoholic like me is an absolute necessity because I am shy, I'm not good at small talk, and I needed that service to keep me in the rooms, to give me a reason to be there early and a reason to stay late because I wasn't going to talk to you guys, but I could be cleaning up or I could be making coffee and I could be doing all this different stuff. And then general service was huge for me because, graduating 40th out of 42, I thought I was stupid. And I always thought that you all knew what was going on and I didn't. And I went to my first assembly and I realized that there are other people who don't know what's going on either. And there's also people who know even less than I know. And that was really important for me to know, to become right sized. I wasn't the biggest loser in the world, and neither were they. But I didn't, I was not behind the door when everyone else got the instructions. Nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all just doing the best we can. And gosh, sponsoring and having a sponsor, I was so scared. I wouldn't tell my sponsor what was going on right now. I was in a meeting the other day where they're talking about this, and that was so hard to talk about what's going on right now. I would rather deal with what's going on right now and then come to my sponsor later and say, see what I did? I'm so great. But usually that that I wasn't so great. But so I would tell my sponsor in the fifth step. I remember telling my sponsor everything, and she was like agreeing with me, like she understood. And I looked at her and I thought, yeah, but you don't really get me. You don't really get it. And when I started sponsoring women, and they would be sharing with me that stuff, and I would see that look in their eye, I knew it. I got it. I got that my sponsor got me, and I get them. I'm going to sneeze. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. And it's just that I was now I was in. And when I got here, I had this need to be special so bad. If I wasn't special, I was nothing. And eventually, thanks. When I started to see that I was in, this feeling of being in and being a part of was so much richer and so much better than this need to be unique. I'm special. So that has been the biggest gift to me, I think, this feeling of being a part of. I'm about to be a grandma. My kids are all grown up. Some of them are fairly suspicious. I think they might need a spot here. But this grandkid is never going to see me drink. I mean, as long as I keep coming here and doing what I've been doing, and I'm really excited about that. And I used to think this was such a silly thing to say, but the farther away I am from my last drink, the closer I am to my next drink. And I understand now that my life, my problems today are not about drinking. They were all about drinking. When I got here, my life was a mess because I was an alcoholic. And now my life gets messy because I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not drinking. And I forget sometimes. That's why it's so good for me to talk, because I don't want to drink again. And my story, I mean, I am a real alcoholic. And the farther away I am, when I got sober, I used to think, well, maybe if I go back out and drink a little bit more, then I'll really see that I'm an alcoholic. But the more I work the steps and the farther away, the more I see, oh, yeah, you're really an alcoholic and you don't need to do that. You could just stay here. So I just want to say to anyone who's scared that it's okay, because if you're scared, you think you don't know what's going on, don't worry. We don't know what's going on. I mean, we're doing the best we can. Some of us know a little bit better how this works than you do, but you'll learn the language, and we're here to help you. We're not here to judge you. So, and if you're scared to sponsor, don't be. My sponsor said to me, you can't F them up, they're already effed up. So that's good to know. And if you're more scared, that's what happened to me. If you're more scared of the next drink than you are of me, then I'm so glad you're here because this is where you belong. And that's all I got tonight. I think, look, I got 21 seconds left. Woo!
Good job, Karla.